I still remember that crisp morning when betrayal struck me like lightning, when I awoke to the stark realization that my husband, the man I once trusted with every beat of my heart, had left me for his secretary. The raw sting of that moment fused with an unexpected burning resolve. I vowed that if he would discard me without remorse, I would reclaim every piece of his life he once cherished. As the sun's early rays crept through my window, illuminating the silent void of our once shared dreams, I felt both shattered and empowered. That day marked the beginning of a journey fueled by heartbreak, searing determination, and a plan so audacious that it would force him to beg for mercy when I took everything he loved. For years, I had believed in the sanctity of our marriage. We had built a life together, woven from shared moments of tenderness, laughter, and promises whispered in the dark. I had given my heart freely, trusting that our love was unbreakable. But as time wore on, cracks began to form. His attention, once devoted entirely to me, drifted like autumn leaves on a lazy breeze. I started noticing the small things: a late-night phone call he excused with vague business reasons, an extra smile exchanged with someone whose eyes I had never met, and the growing distance in his embrace. I brushed them off as the natural progression of a long marriage, never suspecting that the foundation of our union was crumbling. Then came the revelation. One rainy afternoon, I discovered a series of texts on his phone that confirmed my deepest fears. My husband had been entangled with his secretary, a woman who, in my eyes, became the embodiment of betrayal. The shock was overwhelming. I felt as though the very essence of my being had been violated. Every memory, every promise we had made now felt like a cruel joke. In the days that followed, I was engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions: rage, sorrow, humiliation, and most surprisingly, a resolute determination not to be the victim of his infidelity. I spent sleepless nights pondering my next steps. I realized that the pain was not solely his to inflict. If I allowed him to disregard my worth, then I would have to reclaim my power on my own terms. I began to reflect on everything he held dear. His cherished hobbies, his prized possessions, his carefully curated lifestyle, the very aspects of his life that defined him. It wasn't about punishing him for what he had done. It was about restoring balance and dignity to a life that had been shattered by betrayal. I decided that if he could discard me so easily, then I would take away everything he adored. I meticulously planned a transformation of my own, a reclamation of my identity, and a deliberate extraction of every cherished piece of his world. The transformation began slowly, with small acts that built up into a formidable plan. I started by revamping my appearance, not to win him back but to remind myself of my own worth. I invested in a wardrobe that made me feel confident and radiant, attended therapy sessions to untangle the knots of betrayal and self-doubt, and rediscovered long-forgotten passions that had lain dormant under the weight of our shared life. I began to write down my emotions in a journal, documenting every tear, every flash of anger, and every spark of determination. In those pages, I found clarity and the realization that I was not defined by his abandonment but by the strength I had within me. As I regained my sense of self, I turned my attention to the tangible parts of his life, the things he had built and the relationships he cherished. I learned about his hobbies, his favorite restaurants, the art he collected, and even the friends who admired him for his accomplishments. I began to slowly, almost imperceptibly, remove these elements from his environment. I knew it was risky, it felt like playing with fire, yet the intensity of my hurt fueled a cold, calculating resolve. I started by discreetly donating items from his prized collection of vintage watches to a charity he had long supported. I canceled subscriptions to services he valued and even persuaded mutual friends to distance themselves from the gatherings he so often hosted. Each act was a small rebellion, a statement that I was no longer willing to be sidelined, that if he could disregard me, then I would dismantle the very foundation of his carefully constructed life. The process was both exhilarating and heartbreaking. Every time I removed a piece of his world, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow, a reminder of the love we once shared, now twisted into something unrecognizable. I didn't act out of vindictiveness alone. Rather, I was reclaiming a part of myself that had been smothered by his betrayal. I began to understand that true power lies in the ability to let go of what no longer serves you and to rebuild your life from the ashes of heartbreak. Each item I removed was like shedding an old skin, a step toward a new empowered me. I remember one cold evening vividly. I had just finished packing away a collection of his favorite books, a collection that he had often boasted about to friends and which he believed defined his intellect. As I placed them into boxes, I felt an unexpected surge of liberation, mixed with a pang of loss. I knew these books held memories, cherished moments of shared laughter and debates that once filled our evenings with warmth. But they were also symbols of a life we had built together, a life that he was now willing to discard without a second thought. In that moment, I realized that by removing these reminders, I was not erasing our past, but rather clearing the way for a future where I could redefine my own identity, unburdened by the weight of what he had lost interest in. This phase of my journey was not without its consequences. Mutual friends began to notice the changes. Invitations to gatherings dwindled, and there were whispers and sideways glances whenever I was seen in public. It was as if, by taking these actions, I had become a symbol of the crumbling facade of our once happy union. I was both vilified and pitied, a woman scorned, they said, and yet there was a quiet strength in my eyes that suggested I was far from broken. The transformation was polarizing. Some admired the courage it took to reclaim one's life from the ruins of betrayal, while others whispered that I was going too far. But I knew deep down that every act was a necessary step toward reclaiming my dignity and proving to myself that I was worth far more than the neglect and infidelity I had endured. As the weeks turned into months, I began to see a shift in his behavior. The man who had once been so confident, so assured in his choices, started to exhibit signs of regret and desperation. He began calling, pleading for reconciliation, begging me to return and restore what he had lost. I listened to his pleas with a cold detachment, realizing that his sudden remorse was not born out of genuine love, but from the realization that he had lost control over a life that he had once taken for granted. He begged for mercy in tones that were both desperate and hollow, but his words did little to thaw the ice that had formed around my heart. I saw in his eyes the flicker of regret, the dawning realization that he had underestimated the value of the person he had cast aside. The reversal of power was as painful as it was liberating. It forced me to confront a myriad of emotions: anger, sorrow, satisfaction, and a profound sense of loss for the love we once shared. I began to question whether revenge, however satisfying in the moment, could truly mend the wounds that had been inflicted upon my soul. I spent long nights in solitude, contemplating the path I had chosen and weighing the cost of my actions. The victory was bittersweet. While I had reclaimed my dignity and forced him to acknowledge his mistakes, I couldn't help but mourn the love that had once been the foundation of our life together. In those moments of quiet reflection, I realized that true healing would require more than just a reversal of power. It would require forgiveness, not for his sake but for my own. Over time, I embarked on a journey of healing and self-discovery that transformed my pain into a deeper understanding of my own worth. I sought therapy to help me process the betrayal and to rebuild my shattered self-esteem. I learned that while it was natural to feel anger and hurt, holding on to those emotions would only hinder my path to recovery. Forgiveness, I came to understand, was not about absolving him of his actions, but about freeing myself from the chains of resentment that bound me to a painful past. I began to forgive, not to forget, but to liberate my heart and to allow love, in its most authentic form, to re-enter my life. I also discovered that in the process of reclaiming my power, I had to rediscover my own passions and interests, those parts of me that had been suppressed in the shadow of our relationship. I started painting again, a hobby that once brought me immense joy, and I even joined a writing group where I could share my story and connect with others who had faced similar betrayals. These creative outlets became my sanctuary, a way to express the complexity of my emotions and to rebuild my identity from the fragments of a broken past. In the gentle strokes of a brush and the raw honesty of my writing, I found a sense of catharsis that no act of revenge could ever provide. The transformation in my life also led me to re-examine the nature of love itself. I began to understand that love, when it is true, is not possessive or controlling. It is freeing, empowering, and unconditional. I learned that my worth was not determined by how much I could give to someone else, but by the strength of my own heart and the integrity of my own spirit. The betrayal that had once left me feeling shattered now served as a catalyst for profound personal growth. I discovered that true love begins with self-love, and that in order to build healthy relationships, I first had to rebuild my own sense of worth. This journey of self-discovery was painful, but it was also transformative. It taught me that I was capable of rising above the darkest of betrayals and that my true power lay in my ability to forgive and move forward. As I reflect on these years of transformation, I see that every moment of heartbreak, every tear shed in solitude, has contributed to the strength I now possess. The journey was not linear. It was filled with setbacks, moments of doubt, and unexpected twists. There were days when I wanted to give in to the pain, when the thought of letting go seemed impossible. But with each new dawn, I found a reason to keep moving forward, to rebuild my life one piece at a time, and to reclaim my identity from the ruins of betrayal. I learned that the process of reclaiming my power required me to be both fierce and gentle with myself. I had to confront the anger that threatened to consume me and channel it into constructive actions that honored my worth. I had to acknowledge the deep sense of loss I felt, and yet, I also had to celebrate the victories, each one a small affirmation that I was no longer defined by his actions, but by the strength I had built in response. This delicate balance between holding on and letting go became the essence of my journey, a journey that ultimately led me to a place of profound self-respect and resilience. The day finally came when his pleas for mercy reached my ears, desperate phone calls filled with regret, tearful messages that begged me to forgive him and to restore what we once had. I listened, not with the hope of reconciliation, but with the quiet resolve of someone who had already found the power within herself. I had already reclaimed my identity, and I was no longer willing to be pulled back into a relationship that had diminished me. His words, though laden with sorrow and regret, could not undo the lessons I had learned. I realized that true forgiveness was not about giving him a second chance. It was about letting go of the need for his validation and embracing the freedom that comes from moving forward on my own terms. In that final confrontation, as he begged for mercy in a tone that was both pitiful and desperate, I felt a mixture of emotions: sorrow for the love that was lost, satisfaction for the reclaiming of my power, and a deep, unshakable peace that came from knowing that I had chosen the path of healing over revenge. I told him softly, "I cannot return to the past. I have built a new life, a life where my worth is defined by my own choices and not by the neglect and betrayal I once endured." And in that moment, I saw the truth in his eyes, a reflection of the regret and longing for a connection that he had taken for granted. But I also saw that the love he once had for me was now tinged with the bitterness of loss, a love that was no longer enough to mend the wounds of a broken heart. In the days that followed, I focused on my own healing, surrounding myself with friends who celebrated my strength and supporting my journey with new, empowering experiences. I dedicated time to introspection and to creative expression, pouring my emotions into art and writing. I learned that the process of healing is continuous, a series of small, deliberate choices that add up to a life redefined by resilience and hope. I no longer allowed myself to be tethered to the pain of the past. Instead, I embraced each day as an opportunity to create a future that was vibrant, independent, and full of promise. Looking back, I realized that what seemed like a moment of ultimate betrayal was, in fact, the catalyst for my most profound transformation. The pain of being left, the shock of his infidelity, and the subsequent process of reclaiming my life taught me lessons that have become the cornerstones of my new identity. I learned that true strength lies not in clinging to what once was, but in the courage to forge a new path, one that honors your own worth and celebrates the power of self-respect. I discovered that the process of healing involves both letting go of the past and embracing the future with an open heart, free from the chains of regret and resentment. Today, I live my life with a sense of quiet empowerment, a state of being where I am defined not by the actions of my husband, but by the choices I have made in response to his betrayal. I continue to cultivate my passions, nurture my relationships, and build a life that is rich with meaning and authenticity. The journey has not been easy, and there are still moments when the memories of his abandonment and the sting of his infidelity resurface. But I have learned to face those moments with grace, knowing that they are part of a larger narrative, one that is ultimately about reclaiming my identity and forging a future that is entirely my own. I now understand that the true essence of love, real enduring love, begins with self-love. I have learned to nurture my own spirit, to fill my days with activities that bring me joy, and to surround myself with those who respect and uplift me. I have come to see that while the pain of betrayal can leave deep scars, it can also lead to the discovery of an inner strength that you never knew existed. My journey has taught me that healing is not about erasing the past, but about learning from it and using those lessons to build a stronger, more resilient future. I share my story with you as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. It is a story of heartbreak, transformation, and the unyielding power of self-respect. I hope that in hearing my journey, you will be inspired to take control of your own narrative, to refuse to let the actions of others define your worth, and to embrace the possibilities that come with reclaiming your power. Whether you are currently facing a similar betrayal or simply navigating the complexities of long-term relationships, know that you have the strength to rise above the pain and to create a life that is full of dignity, joy, and authenticity. There are moments when I still feel the echo of his abandonment, a fleeting sense of loss that reminds me of what once was. But those moments are now interwoven with the rich tapestry of my newfound independence. I no longer live in the shadow of his betrayal. Instead, I stand in the light of my own strength, my own resilience, and my own unbreakable spirit. I have learned that the journey toward healing is not linear, it is filled with peaks and valleys, moments of intense pain and unexpected triumph. And through it all, I have discovered that true liberation comes from within. Every day as I walk through the quiet streets of my neighborhood or sit in the calm solitude of my favorite reading nook, I am reminded that my life is mine to shape. I am no longer defined by the choices of another, but by the wisdom I have gained through my own struggles. I have learned to trust my instincts, to honor my emotions, and to believe in the power of forgiveness, not for his sake but for my own peace. Forgiveness, I now understand, is not about forgetting the hurt. It is about releasing the hold that pain has on your soul so that you can move forward with a heart that is light and free. In the end, my journey is a testament to the fact that while betrayal can shatter your world, it can also open the door to a deeper understanding of yourself. A self that is resilient, courageous, and capable of forging a new, more empowered path. I have learned that true transformation begins when you refuse to let the actions of others define you, and instead choose to rebuild your life on your own terms. I stand here today as a living embodiment of that truth, a woman who has reclaimed her identity, who has found strength in the midst of heartbreak, and who continues to move forward with hope, determination, and an unwavering belief in her own worth. This is my story, a story of pain, transformation, and ultimately redemption. It is a reminder that while the scars of betrayal may never fully fade, they can serve as powerful symbols of survival and renewal. I share my journey with you not to seek sympathy, but to offer a glimpse into the process of reclaiming one's life when everything seems lost. May my experiences inspire you to look within, to find the strength that lies hidden beneath the surface, and to remember that you are worthy of a life filled with love, respect, and the freedom to be truly yourself. I hope that by sharing these reflections, I can offer you a small measure of solace, encouragement, and inspiration. Life, as I have come to learn, is not about clinging to the remnants of what once was, but about embracing the possibilities of what can be. It is about turning pain into power, despair into determination, and heartbreak into a stepping stone toward a future that is defined by your own strength and resilience. Every day is a new beginning, a chance to rebuild, to rediscover, and to redefine what it means to love, to live, and to be truly free. May you find the courage to let go of the past, the wisdom to embrace the future, and the strength to walk forward with your head held high, knowing that your journey is uniquely your own. In the end, the power to create a life of fulfillment and joy lies not in the hands of those who have wronged you, but in your own ability to rise above the pain and to build a legacy of resilience and hope. This is my truth, my testament to the indomitable spirit that carries us through even the darkest of times. A spirit that, with each new day, shines brighter than the one before, lighting the path to a future filled with endless possibility and unwavering self-love.